In a recent Netflix documentary about a horrific crime, a family member of the young girl who was murdered made this astute observation about her killer. Except for the fact that he took her from us, he is superfluous to her story. Don't let the people who do these awful things be the people everyone remembers. Let them remember the young women who have died. Amen to that. Fortunately for us, Daphne's legacy is vast and ever relevant in her writing, her family, and the memories of those that knew and loved her. In our determined pursuit of justice and accountability, it is also our duty to ensure that Daphne remains front and center always. Daphne the woman, Daphne the journalist, Daphne the sister, Daphne the daughter, Daphne the mother, and Daphne the friend. The first 3 readings today are extracts from A Death in Malta by Caruana Galizia.
I listen for her, and I can hear the lilt of her voice. It had something of the up and down Maltese cadence, but it was gentler than was typical, and it came with more pauses, some to think and others to let sources talk. There was a shyness about her that meant she always felt more comfortable expressing herself in writing rather than out loud. "I love it," she told an interviewer 10 days before her murder. "It's a compulsion to write." As she wrote, so she gazed with intensity. When I lied to her about coming home late, or not at all, I felt myself wilt in her eyes as she listened. Aside from her writing and her own indelible impression, she left her things, mostly books. There are the ones from when she began in journalism, edited collections of the New Journalism, the Faber Book of Reportage, the staples of narrative non-fiction. There are phases of her taste in fiction: Edith Wharton, Virginia Woolf and Doris Lessing, Bret Easton Ellis and Jay McInerney, Rose Tremaine, Jonathan Franzen and Alice Munro. There are books about food and architecture from when she launched her own magazines. There are the Maltese history books, including the ones about witch trials, of women accused of having a nasty tongue and sentenced to death by Catholic inquisitors. But the books show it wasn't only the church that carried out witch hunts. Neighbors conspired with officials to erase women who were already marginal. It's all there in the books.
She loved purple and avoided black, which reminded her of the drab days of her youth. When she and her friends would buy white plimsolls, the only casual shoe available then in Malta, and dye them different colours. She likened their lives to those of young people behind the Iron Curtain. The clothes they mocked up and the music they listened to were their salvation and brought the civilized West closer to them. "We could pretend for the duration of an LP," she wrote, "that we didn't live someplace where we had to hitch a ride on an army lorry to get home from school." She continued to play music: Bob Dylan, Neil Young, Tracy Chapman, and Bob Marley, loudly and repetitively for the rest of her life. Looking back now, I can see that the music, like the reading, was an escape. The country had grown more prosperous during her time, but the society she longed for never arrived. The old Malta lingered. Troublesome women were still branded as witches.
Everyone read Daphne. Our surname was redundant. Our first names were redundant. My father was known as Daphne's husband, my brothers and I as Daphne's sons. And the retaliation for her writing came. My brothers and I grew up thinking it normal to have our mother's name all over the newspapers and broadcast media, for politicians to sue and slander her, to have our house set on fire, to have police at the garden gate to guard or arrest her, to answer the home phone and hear obscenities about her, to find parcels of human excrement in the post, and to see her check the underside of her car for bombs before taking us to school. As a boy, I used to wonder why my friends' mothers were so different to mine. As a teenager, I resented the difference. I sometimes felt that our lives might be easier if she wasn't a journalist. It was only at the end of my adolescence that I began to see there was a problem in Malta, and that the problem was not my mother.
The following are excerpts from two of Daphne's articles written around the time of the 2013 general election. There are libel laws to stop us lying about anyone, public or private, and to stop us invading the privacy of those who are not public figures. There are hate speech laws to stop us inciting violence on groups of people for reasons which are not their choices, like the color of their skin, their sexual inclinations, or their religion, which is never really a choice, is it? But beyond that, European democracy is built on the fundamental concept of free speech, open debate, and not silencing others just because we don't like what they say. I find hordes of barely educated people shouting obscenities at me to be highly objectionable, crude and vulgar, and I would much prefer it if they were capable of entering into a proper debate. But I would never demand that they be silenced by the law or by the threat of violence, though technically speaking it is against the law to use that kind of language to insult others in public. I have serious reservations about using the law to go after them. I am more comfortable allowing them to swear their way to kingdom come and back again. That they do not share this opinion is deeply ironic. While they call for me to be silenced by legal, there are none, or illegal means, there are plenty, I defend their right to call for me to be silenced, even while writing about the fact that it is a sorry reflection on Malta in the 21st century that so many people still exist, and that worse, they have bred a whole new generation who are essentially non-European and who do not understand the thinking that much of Europe has taken for granted for decades and even centuries. Let this be a lesson to the lot of us. Know your rights. Know your civil liberties. Know what the fundamental principles of democratic thinking and behavior are, and never give in to authority just because it is authority. That's the thinking which feeds and enables totalitarianism. Members of authorities need a legal basis in the law to act, and even that is not enough. If a law is in itself illegal, if it violates fundamental principles of human rights and liberties, then you are not obliged to obey it. On the contrary, it is your duty not to do so. That is why we have access to a constitutional court and to the European Court of Human Rights. What happened in the 1970s and 1980s was possible because people gave in. They complied. They lowered their heads below the parapet, and they worked with corrupt and abusive scum to ensure their own survival rather than defying them, for the sake of a quiet life. That was the thin edge end of the wedge, and by the time we reached the thick end of the wedge years later, nobody had a quiet life. It was hell even for those who were too brainwashed, stupid, isolated, and uneducated to know that there was a different way of living, that it didn't have to be like that.
This is an extract from Come September, a 2002 lecture by author and activist Arundhati Roy. There are other worlds, other kinds of dreams, dreams in which failure is feasible, honorable, sometimes even worth striving for. Worlds in which recognition is not the only barometer of brilliance or human worth. There are plenty of warriors whom I know and love, who are more valuable than myself, who go to war each day knowing in advance that they will fail. True, they are less successful in the most vulgar sense of the word, but by no means less fulfilled. The only dream worth having is the dream that you will live while you are alive and die only when you are dead. To love, to be loved, to never forget your own insignificance, to never get used to the unspeakable violence and the vulgar disparity of life around you, to seek joy in the saddest places, to pursue beauty to its lair, to never simplify what is complicated or complicate what is simple, to respect strength, never power, above all, to watch, to try and understand, to never look away, and never, never to forget.
Took my love, took it down. I climbed a mountain and I turned around, and I saw my reflection in snow-covered hills till the landslide brought me down. Oh, mirror in the sky, what is love? Can the child within my heart rise above? Can I sail through the changing ocean tides? Can I handle the seasons of my life?
famous, aren't you, boy? With your quiet voice and impeccable style. Don't ever let them steal your joy and your gentle ways to keep them from running wild. They can kick dirt in your face, dress you down and tell you that your place is in the middle when they hate the way you shine. I see you tugging on your shirt, trying to hide inside of it and hide how much it hurts. Let 'em laugh while they can. Let 'em spin, let 'em scatter in the wind. I have been to the movies, I've seen hands, and the jokes on me. You get discouraged, don't you, girl? It's your brother's world for a while longer. You gotta dance with the devil on a river to beat the stream. Call it living the dream, call it kicking the ladder. They come to kick dirt in your face, to call you weak and then displace you after carrying your baby on your back across the desert. I saw your eyes behind your hair, and you're looking tired, but you don't look scared. Let 'em laugh while they can. Let 'em spin, let 'em scatter saw the crescent. You saw the whole of the moon, the whole of the moon. You were there in the turnstiles with the wind at your heels. You stretched for the stars, and you know how it feels to reach too high, too far, too soon. You saw the whole of the moon. I was grounded while you fill the skies. I was dumbfounded by truth. You cut through lies. I saw the dirty rain valley. You saw Brigadoon. I saw the crescent. You saw the whole of the moon. I spoke about wings. You just flew. I wondered, I guessed, and I tried. You just knew. I sighed, but you swooned. I saw the crescent. You saw the whole of the moon, the whole of the moon. With a torch in your pocket and wind at your heels, you climbed on a ladder, and you know how it feels to reach too high, too far, too soon. You saw the whole of the moon, the whole of the moon. Unicorns, cannonballs, palaces and piers, trumpets, towers, tenements, wide oceans full of tears, flags, bags, ferry boats, scimitars and scars, every precious dream and vision underneath the stars. Yes, you climbed on a ladder with the wind in your sails. You came like a comet, blazing your trail. Too high, too far, too soon. You saw the whole